come to Skid Row. But now you need to see afterwards. You see how dirty these streets is? The streets ain't being clean. And ain't no trash cans. See the red trash cans? The red trash cans belong to the business people. They don't belong to the city. The city can bring out one trash can. They got one trash can.
Governor, do you speak Spanish well? I think you do, right?
All the buildings.
No? There's a woman back there that was talking about her kids getting taken while she's living in a tent. It's happening every day.
This absolute sleazeball. It's almost kind of comical. We got to give you an update on Gavin Newsom today because, you know, he's only been governor for close to 7 years by now. But finally in 2025, Governor Newsom is announcing he is going to be cracking down now on California's infamous homelessness problem. To which I first of all say, where have we heard that one before? But secondly, I think it's very obvious what is going on here. And this is the same argument I made when he announced he's going to be doing an anti-crime campaign. After allowing years of smash and grab and mass looting and mass crime, oh, we're going to clean it up. And that's exactly the fact that obviously he is running for president in 2028. And he understands that some of the right-wing talking points about what a lunatic mess California is are going to come back to bite him. So what he's trying to do is at the very last minute before he leaves out the door, he's going to attempt to clean up the state so he can say, look, California homelessness, never heard of it, right? That's never been a thing. I definitely was not the worst governor of all time. And will he succeed in this endeavor to clean up his image? Well, that remains to be seen. But I want to bring you evidence today that shows that might not be the case because of the rampant corruption when it comes to California in general, but particularly in cleaning up this homelessness problem, right? Because it's needless to say, they've spent a ton of money, billions of dollars already on saying they're going to fix this problem. Much of that money was, yes, spent under Gavin Newsom's governorship, and it has not yielded any results. Well, that is because a recent court-ordered audit of California's homelessness spending is showing some pretty shocking results. And, well, is any of that going to change? Well, we know Gavin Newsom still takes money from these same donors. California's corruption problem has not gone anywhere. So this, in the end, might come back to bite him, right? The Leviathan he created, now he cannot overcome even when he's trying to appear to the rest of the country like this sensible moderate, right? So, you know, you obviously also have the World Cup coming to Los Angeles, I believe next year, Los Angeles Olympics in 28. And, well, it might be a massive embarrassment, not just for the United States, but particularly Gavin Newsom, if he cannot get this problem fixed. But we'll tell you about it again. Newsom suddenly trying to clean up the homeless. What's going on here? We'll get into it. First, though, do us a favor, guys. If you enjoy our content, make sure you hit that like button down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. We're almost at 500K. Help us get there. Hit that red button. And with that said, you can see the headline. It speaks for itself, right? Governor Gavin Newsom on Friday, and this is a recent headline, guys. This is from the end of just August here, announced the creation of a statewide task force aimed at dismantling homeless encampments on state property and expanding access to shelter and services. Like, we're going to finally do this, guys. California is taking care of its own problems. Except, again, does it seem like deja vu? It should. Because while I was researching for this video, I found some pretty hilarious headlines from the same exact local news outlets talking about every single time Gavin Newsom has done this before. And obviously, as you can see from the state of California, it has not produced any results. Here's one from July 25th, 2024, about 1 year ago. Breaking news. Newsom to sign an order for homeless removal of homeless encampments, right? Has any of this been successful? Well, not really. They remove 1 to 2 homeless encampments and then they respawn immediately. And it's like, what's going on there? Well, guys, it's worth noting as well, this is something Gavin Newsom has been pledging even since before he was governor, all the way back to 2008, where he announced his 10-year plan. I believe he was mayor of San Francisco at the time. 10-year plan to end homelessness in California. Well, newsflash, it is now the 17-year anniversary of Gavin Newsom's 10-year plan to end homelessness in California. And not only does homelessness still exist all over California, it's more than doubled. But here is the timeline. Again, where have we heard this before? But this time, trust me, guys, Newsom's really going to do something. Okay, sure.
And that's why we established this framework, what we call a 10-year plan to end chronic homelessness in San Francisco. Now, a lot of people across this country have adopted similar plans, but we're very proud of our plan, the robust nature of the plan, and the leadership of Angela Alioto and others on our plan that we think have done an outstanding job in a very short period of time.
Now we can reflect on the fact that Project Homeless Connect is availed itself in 221 cities. This has truly become a national model.
The issue of poverty in all of its forms and manifestations, but particularly homeless. 12,029 human beings since January 2004 we've assisted off the streets and out of our shelter system. Thousands into permanent supportive housing, the biggest housing expansion in our city's history of supportive housing. This is just another in the long list of examples. Hats off to the 10-year Council to End Chronic Homelessness. The state of California has been nowhere to be found on the issue of homelessness. And it is not surprising the state has more people living on the streets and sidewalks, chronically single adults, than any other state in the nation. And not just, again, by scope and scale, the size of our state, disproportionate number of people, because we haven't done enough.
Camouflage the most pernicious crisis, though, in our midst. And that's the ultimate manifestation of poverty, homelessness. And that's why I'm devoting today's remark to this crisis. Let's call it what it is. It's a disgrace that the richest state in the richest nation, succeeding across so many sectors, is falling so far behind to properly house, heal, and humanely treat so many of its own people. Every day, the California dream is dimmed by the wrenching reality of families, of children, and seniors living unfed on a concrete bed.
There's no greater manifestation of our failure as a society broadly, or as a state more specifically, than the issue of homelessness. And that's what brought to bear a strategy to do something radically different. There's an old saying, continue to do what you've done, you'll get what you've got. We recognized a year plus ago that we needed to do things radically differently. And that's when we birthed an idea, Project Room Key and Home Key. And the two elected officials you just heard from used a similar phrase, game changer. No compassion stepping over people in the streets and sidewalks. There's no compassion in reading about someone losing their life under 280 in an encampment. There's no compassion in that. I mean, we could hold hands, have a candlelight vigil, talk about the way the world should be, or we could take some damn responsibility to implement our ideals. And that's what we're doing differently here. And that's what we're advancing differently here today. Let's see results. We'll fund success, not failure. I want to see results. You asked for money for encampments. We took $50 million, made it $750 million, keeping in the budget. Let's see results. I mean, I've been listening to that rhetoric my entire life. Well, we can't do anything until we have more on go. I get it. They're not wrong, but they're not right either. Let's do our job. This homeless crisis is out of control. People that criticize it are right.
People who criticize it are right, said California Governor Gavin Newsom in 2023 when he was the governor. But now if right-wingers criticize it, they're conspiracy theorists, apparently. Secondly, I mean, there's a lot to break down. I mean, yeah, Gavin, it's clearly you've been doing a fantastic job, right? But you keep saying, oh, I've been hearing this rhetoric all my life. Yes, who have you been hearing it from? You. It's been coming from you. You were the mayor. You were the lieutenant governor, if I'm not mistaken. Now you're obviously the governor. You're the one who keeps saying it. And we got to tackle this. We got to do something. Where's the evidence? Where's the progress being made? Okay? Take a listen here, ironically, as Gavin Newsom admitted back in 2018, as he was running for governor the first time, that he is now a failed governor. Because by his own standards, and they're not unreasonable standards, frankly, as you can see here, right? While campaigning, Gavin Newsom said that if the next governor did not do something to improve the housing affordability and homelessness situation in California, that governor would be a failure. Indeed, Gavin got elected that November. Now, there are 50% more homeless people in California than at the time of the video. So you said, if you don't improve homelessness, if you make it worse, you are a failure. There's Gavin Newsom admitting he's now a failure as governor, right? And housing affordability, needless to say, that's not gotten any better either. So here he is. And you know what, guys? Trump campaign, hey, Vance campaign, I guess I should say 2028. Remember this video, okay? It's going to be an asset for you.
Affordability is number one. Issue of housing costs everywhere I go. That's the universal issue. Number two, people are just fed up with the homeless crisis in the state. No other state in the country as many people out in the streets and sidewalks as the state of California. I think if the next governor doesn't address the issue of affordability on housing, that governor will have failed. If we don't address the homeless issue in a meaningful way, we'll have failed also on a moral framework because it's a tragedy to see so many people self-medicating in drug or alcohol addictions, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, paranoia out on the streets and sidewalks. So those two issues for me have been most resonant on this campaign trail.
Yeah, well, again, there's Gavin Newsom by his own standards admitting that he is a failed governor. But I'm sure this time it will be different, right? This time, your new executive order to crack down on homeless, your new legislation, whatever you're going to do, that's going to solve the problem, right? Here's another gem, by the way, because it's worth noting. He has spent tens of billions of dollars trying to address homelessness. It's gotten worse. Seems kind of counterintuitive, right? Here's another great one. This headline is from 2016, guys. Okay, we went all the way back in the time machine. LA votes to spend $1.2 billion to house the homeless as Measure Triple H passes. Yeah, since then, the homeless population in California, or in LA, I should say, at the time was about 20,000. It is now almost 80,000. So you've almost multiplied it by 4 times. But, great use of the money, right, guys? And even now this month, if you're wondering if Gavin Newsom's little performative order is going anywhere, I mean, here's a local headline from just yesterday out of where I grew up in the Los Angeles County area, right, San Fernando Valley. Residents in a San Fernando Valley neighborhood said a growing number of people living in RVs and trailers have taken over these streets, which is escalating concerns over crime and drug activity. There is one also by the bus station near my childhood house. Yeah, newsflash, it's not doing anything, right? It's only getting worse. Here's another one, recent video of just what LA looks like. Yeah, nobody's surprised. In other words, nothing has changed. And as we even recently covered, okay, the great job Gavin Newsom here is doing, not only does California have a massive homelessness problem and a massive problem with fires and wildfires particularly, but the problem has gotten so bad where we talked about this before, but you have homeless people living in the forest, in this case, particularly the Sepulveda Basin in Southern California, actually starting the wildfires in the community because they have these like stoves, gas cookers and stuff. And as you can see, more than 700 reported fires in the Sepulveda Basin area over the past year and a half, most of which were caused by homeless, and the local residents, yes, are fed up. But of course, what do they blame these fires on? Oh, it's because of climate change. Oh, it's because Donald Trump won't give us enough resources. No, it's because of the very problem you said like 30,000 years ago you were going to address, and you still haven't.
Now at 11, they are fires that are visible all across the San Fernando Valley. Blazes sparked near homeless encampments nearly every week. Now neighbors are fed up and they're fighting back. Eyewitness News reporter Tim Caputo live in Encino with what neighbors want to see from the city. Tim.
And Mark, quite simply, they'd like to see the hundreds of homeless who often start fires in the Sepulveda Basin to be gone, moved out of there. But it's not that simple. Those people, hundreds of them, showed up here to the meeting behind me. Intentions were high. They were looking for solutions, looking for answers from city leaders. Instead, they got a very frank and honest conversation about the complexities of governing. There have been more than 700 reported fires in the Sepulveda Basin in just the last year and a half. That's at least one call to LAFD every single day.
It's scary what's happening. It's just like an everyday occurrence when there's fires every day across the street from your house and you see smoke. I'm not in a fire zone, but I am because of the homeless.
Fires often started by the estimated 200 to 300 homeless living here, and there are growing fears those fires will one day spread to the packed neighborhoods next door.
Yeah, well, what a great state you have, Gavin Newsom. California is leading the nation, don't you know? We have the biggest economy. These red states, they don't know what they're doing. We're really good at this, okay? They're poor, we're rich, blah, blah, blah. So rich you cannot stop homeless people from starting massive forest fires in your own state hundreds of times a year. Okay. Well, of course, I think now we just have to beg the question, what is causing this? By the way, here's another great statistic. Over 50% of the fires that LA Fire Department responds to, not just wildfires, but fires in general across the city, are started by homeless people. Yeah, go figure. Is just the central question, if they've spent tens of billions of dollars addressing homelessness, and Gavin Newsom has signed 1 million executive orders and he's introduced 1 million plans on this, how exactly has that happened? We'll address that in a second, but first, here's how ridiculous the numbers are. And again, to show to Gavin Newsom, by the proof, by the numbers, by the statistics, he, by his own standard, is a failed governor of California. Here is the math on how badly he has addressed this problem, and it's far from the only one, but it is the subject of today's video, so check it out.
Since 2019, the state has spent over $36 billion. This is truly astounding when you consider what has actually happened to with homelessness in California during that time. This is during the governorship of Gavin Newsom. We have seen a 24% increase in homelessness. The population is now over 187,000 people, and roughly half of all unsheltered homeless in the United States are in California. So we have continued to spend more and more money, over $36 billion over this time period, and the homeless population has only continued to grow.
Yeah, so what is going on with the money? Well, here's your answer. I know everyone's going to be shocked. This is really groundbreaking stuff. But it's basically embezzlement, right? Laundering, giving money to corrupt NGOs that probably are indirectly bankrolling the campaigns of local Democrats, and in the end, of course, nothing's really getting done. California's just giving out all this money to contractors who aren't doing anything. Same story, by the way, with the high-speed rail, right? That's another topic we love covering. By the way, Newsom this week also announced he's going to be upping the funding for that and is now saying it's finally going to get done. Again, broken record, time and time again. Where have we heard this all before? But earlier this year, a court conducted an ordered audit of California homelessness spending to figure out what is going on here. And indeed, as you could expect, billions are missing with zero accountability. By the way, remember how much these people got mad over Doge and they said it's a conspiracy that, government is being ran with corruption and bureaucracy and all of this? Well, typical cases. I mean, California is not the only example, but they are, frankly, the icon of it, right? So California has been giving out money to NGOs with no signed contracts and no terms for services to be provided. Yes, straight up money laundering. Again, they got mad at Elon Musk for demanding the Treasury, hey, every time you send out a payment, it has to be itemized. It has to be stated for a reason. No, free money, of course. This quote goes on to say, we knew something was going on with the homeless problem in Los Angeles, and this court made the audit report public, and it is really damning. It shows the city and the Los Angeles Homeless Service Authority are in complete disarray of how they're managing the homeless service in Los Angeles. And basically, there's no way for these nonprofits to be held accountable and have to fulfill a contract in order to receive all their money. In other words, a lot of left-wing activists and NGO heads are getting rich off of this stuff. Sometimes LA is paying these for services without even having a contract, and these contracts are not detailed even in terms of what service was provided and, yes, for how many people. That's why I also say here that if Gavin even is serious this time about cleaning up homelessness because he wants to shut down the narratives about California, again, when you create this Leviathan, it's going to come back to bite you because now you're trying to take down the very same Leviathan, right? You're still going to have to run into the same bureaucracy, the same corruption, all this stuff. And even if you want to be serious this time, this is the monster you've allowed, right? Because Gavin Newsom was profiting massively off of this stuff, basically his entire governorship, dating all the way back to the PG&E stuff and the fact that, well, the electricity companies bought him out and then he was allowing the fires and bailing out the companies, all this other garbage, real estate, a lot of different stuff, right? Largely, you'd have to assume this is another thing that he and California Democrats were benefiting off of. So, but the problem is when you create that, are you going to be able to just tear it down overnight? Well, I don't think so, but take a listen to how bad this audit actually is in terms of what it reveals.
We knew that something was going wrong with the homeless system in Los Angeles. So in May of last year, we had an audit. The court made this audit report public, and it really is damning. It shows the city and LAHSA are in complete disarray in terms of how they are managing the homeless services in Los Angeles. The auditors had such a difficult time getting information. They couldn't even figure out the total budget. They estimated that the amount of services that they were able to really review was about $2.3 billion. There's more, but they can't find it. They would ask about the city of Los Angeles budget and who they contract with, and all of those pointed to LAHSA, the homelessness coordinator for the region. The city has no real way to determine how much money they spend on homelessness services, and LAHSA has no way of holding a lot of these nonprofit they contract with accountable. Sometimes LAHSA pays for services without even contract. And these contracts aren't even detailed in terms of what the service was provided and for how many people. They have really poor financial oversight. And at the end of the day, they can't determine whether or not the services are being provided. If they're being provided more than once and billed more than once, the city is paying for empty beds when people are going homeless on the streets. It really is a problem.
Yeah, well, again, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand why are all these like unmarked payments going out, because they're just embezzling it, right? We all know this. Here's the problem for Gavin Newsom. No matter how hard he tries to rebrand himself right before he runs for president, no matter how hard he tries to pretend like none of this stuff is happening, it is happening. And again, I think it's going to be an obstacle in actually trying to fix the state, because you've already created this problem. But secondly, imagine this picture as well. So what happens if Gavin Newsom starts to demand accountability from the nonprofits, the NGO groups, all this stuff, who, by the way, are also big supporters and bankrollers behind the scenes of the Democrat Party? Well, he's going to be pissing off a lot of the very people who would otherwise be supporting him or donating to his campaign. So what problems internally does that cause, right? It's a big, gigantic mess. And who knows truly if Gavin Newsom is really ready to address it, you know? He's having a lot of fun right now doing the interviews, the press conferences. Oh, he's redistricting. Oh, he's trolling Trump and copying everything Trump does on social media. But when the issues come down to the substance, and, you know, frankly, Kamala Harris faced the same exact problem, which is she had a hard time running from her radical past. But for Newsom, it's worse. Because Harris ran for president 2020 as a radical, said some stupid things, whatever, right? California was somewhat connected to her, but she was a senator, she was a DA, little bit less of a closeness between the two. Gavin Newsom is known as the governor of California, right? Everything happening in that state is going to be reflective on him. How's he going to be able to address all this stuff? Well, I'm sure he's going to lie. He's going to gaslight about it. But can you really get around some of the ridiculousness of all this stuff? And are you really going to assume nobody across this country knows what the deal is with a state like California? It's a tall mountain to climb. But that said, guys, that's exactly why we bring you stories like this, so that people are aware and so that Gavin Newsom cannot run from these very things, because we see through what is going on, right? I pay very close attention to this guy. I lived in the state for 18 years. I know this crap like the back of my hand, frankly, California politics. And that's why I say, okay, we know. We got our eyes on you all the way till November 2028, Gavin. Trust me. But all right, with that said, guys, let me know your thoughts. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and until next time, God bless and peace.